Have you ever been involved in a debate or observed a debate or protest that is being challenged or questions on moral standard, spirituality, self-belief, and/or medical aspects? In today's society, there are many issues being challenged in government policies, or in churches, or in families across the United States. One topic that has been debated for quite some time, and will continue to be debated in the future, is whether or not same-sexes should be allowed to legally marry. It is interesting to find that many people in our society believe in equal rights for homosexuals, but the same people oppose the right of homosexuals to marry. So is it really unethical for homosexuals to marry, or is it the personal feelings of people that they should not? During my research through gay marriage, the arguments and the motives, as an essay that can be found at www.bitstrap, I found that a lot of the reasons behind the cons are really not binding factors, but are personal fears and thoughts of people. The Stonewall legacy has turned out to be the pivotal movement in the gay rights movement. We want to explore a little about the gay movement history. The Stonewall is an unassuming little bar in Manhattan's West Village that has become a true landmark in gay history. 40 years ago, the New York gay community rose up here in a riot that sparked the modern gay rights movement. In the summer of 1969, the New York gay activist movement was born when a group of gay New Yorkers made a stand against raiding police officers at the Stonewall Inn. On June 27, 1969, the patrons of the Stonewall Inn had had enough. The Stonewall Bar catered to an assortment of patrons, but it was known to be popular with the poorest and most marginalized people in the gay community: drag queens, effeminate young men, hustlers, and homeless youths. Police raids on gay bars were routine in the 1960s, but officers quickly lost control of the situation at the Stonewall Inn and attracted a crowd that was incited to riot. Tensions between New York City police and gay residents of Greenwich Village erupted into more protests the next evening and again several nights later. Within a week, that following Wednesday, approximately 1,000 protesters returned to continue the protest and march on Christopher Street. A movement had begun, as stated in the Stonewall riots at about.com. Let's look at how the courts and legislations have debated and made rules concerning marriage by the same sex. In recent years, the debate over same-sex marriage has grown from an issue that occasionally arose in a few states to a nationwide controversy. Indeed, in the last 5 years, the debate over gay marriage has been heard in the halls of the U.S. Congress, the White House, and many states and courtrooms, and the rhetorical election campaigns at both the national and state levels. Moreover, the battle over whether gays and lesbians should be allowed to wed shows no signs of abating. There are 7 countries that allow same-sex marriage in totality. They are Canada, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, and South Africa. In the United States, there are 29 states that oppose same-sex marriage in their constitutions, and 14 states have it banned through written laws. Only 6 states have approved that same-sex marriage will be legal and honored. Before states legalized the same-sex marriage in 2009, is Iowa Supreme Court ruled that the state's constitution guarantees gays and lesbians the right to wed. In April of 2009, the Vermont legislature legalized same-sex marriage. In May of 2009, 2 other state legislatures, those in Maine and New Hampshire, followed suit. Let's discuss what gay relationships are really all about. The stereotype has it that gays are promiscuous, unable to form lasting relationships, and the relationships that do form are shallow and uncommitted. But the important fact to note is that just like in straight society, where such relationships do also exist, they are a small minority and exist primarily among the very young. The values that such gay couples exhibit in their daily lives are often indistinguishable from those of their straight neighbors. They're loyal to their mates, are monogamous, devoted partners. They value and participate in family life, are committed to making their neighbors and communities safer and better places to live, and honor and abide by the laws. Many make valuable contributions to their communities, serving on school boards, volunteering in community charities, and trying to be good citizens. In doing so, they take full advantage of their relationship to make not only their lives better, but those of their neighbors as well. There are a lot of reasons being offered these days for opposing gay marriage, from that it does not fit the definition of marriage, to it hurts the environment of family, to that it is immoral and violates sacred institution. The argument on it does not fit the definition of a marriage includes marriage is an institution between one man and one woman, which is the most often heard argument, and that marriage is for procreation. Marriages are for ensuring the continuation of the species. Same-sex marriage would threaten the institution of marriage is traditionally a heterosexual institution. Yet these are the weakest arguments. Who says what marriage is to be defined by? It seems to me that if the straight community cannot show a compelling reason to deny the institution of marriage to gay people, it shouldn't be denied. The proponents of the argument that procreation and continuation of species are really hard-pressed to explain why. If that's the case, then infertile couples are allowed to marry. I, for one, would love to be there when the proponent of such an argument is to explain to his post-menopausal mother or impotent father that since they cannot procreate, they must now surrender their wedding rings. That would be fun to watch. Let's face it, marriage is about love and commitment and support for that commitment, not about procreation. Further, to say that same-sex marriage would threaten the institution of marriage, that's one contradictory right on the face of it. Threaten marriage by allowing people to marry? That doesn't sound very logical to me. If you allow gay people to marry each other, you no longer encourage them to marry people to whom they feel a little attraction, with whom they most often cannot relate sexually, and thereby reduce the number of supposed heterosexual marriages that end up in the divorce courts. If it is the institution of heterosexual marriage that worries you, then consider that no one will require you or anyone else to participate in a gay marriage. So you would have freedom of choice of choosing what kind of marriage to participate, something more than what you have now. Why not recognize the truth that there is no moral ground on which to support the tradition of marriage as a strictly heterosexual institution and remove the restriction? Another good argument is that same-sex marriage is not the optimal environment in which to raise children. That's an interesting one in light of who society does allow to get married and bring children into their marriage. Check it out. Murderers, convicted felons of all sorts, even known child molesters, are allowed to freely marry and procreate, and do so every day with hardly a second thought by these same critics. So if children are truly the priority here, why is this allowed? The fact is that many gay couples raise children, adopted and occasionally their own, from failed attempts at heterosexual marriage. Lots and lots of science studies have shown that the outcomes of the children raised in the homes of gay and lesbian couples are just as good as those of straight couples. We could go on and on with the arguments that people opposed to same-sex marriage comes up with, but the truth and the real reasons that same-sex marriage is opposed and even fear are for the following. They're just not comfortable with the idea. Marriage is a sacred institution, and gay marriage violates that sanctity. This is, of course, related to the motive above. Gay sex is unnatural. Making love to another man betrays that it is masculine. The thought of gay sex is repulsive. They might recruit. Gay marriage would undermine sodomy laws. Gay marriage would legalize homosexuality. At the end of the day, the opposition to gay marriage stems ultimately from a deep-seated homophobia in American culture, born almost entirely of religious prejudice. It seems very funny that all the arguments and reasons why gay marriage has been debated always comes back to the self-feeling or awareness of the person that is opposing it. There are no written guidelines on how not to become gay, and even though people believe that it's a disease and not a choice, they fear their right to marry. If a person is acceptable of the homosexuality, then why is it not acceptable for them to marry? We allow them to adopt children, show public affection, and be in our society. Then why not let them complete a life available to all human beings?